The Last Guardian Protocol Part 1. The Awakening, the emergency session of the Galactic Coalition Council, had been in continuous operation for 73 hours. Ambassador Zixthar of the Velkari watched as another star system disappeared from the holographic display, its light winking out like a dying ember. That made 847 worlds consumed by the Kreeth swarm in just 6 months. We cannot hold them. Admiral Chiron's voice crackled through the translation matrix, his crystalline form refracting the dim emergency lighting. Our best projections give us 4 weeks before they breach the core systems. 4 weeks until everything we've built over 10,000 years becomes biomass for their consumption. The council chamber fell silent. Delegates from 200 species sat in their designated atmospheric zones, each one representing billions of souls now facing extinction. Zixthar's tentacles coiled tighter around his support frame. In his 3 centuries of diplomatic service, he had never witnessed such collective despair. There must be something, pleaded Counselor Mirazol, her feathered crest flat against her skull in distress. Some weapon we haven't deployed, some tactic we haven't considered. We've tried everything, Chiron responded, his tone hollow. Quantum bombs, stellar disruption, even temporal displacement fields. The swarm adapts faster than we can innovate. For every 1,000 drones we destroy, 10,000 more emerge from consumed worlds. Zixthar accessed his neural implant, reviewing data streams his archaeological survey teams had been sending for months. Most delegates didn't know about the expedition to Earth, the legendary birth world of humanity, abandoned 3,000 years ago when the last humans departed for parts unknown. It had been a routine survey, cataloging the ruins of a civilization that had once touched the stars before mysteriously withdrawing. But 3 days ago, they'd found something. Distinguished colleagues, Zixthar interrupted, his translator unit modulating his biochemical signals into audible speech. I may have an alternative. An unprecedented option, though one that carries significant ethical concerns. Every sensory organ in the chamber oriented toward him. My survey team on Earth has discovered a facility, a military installation buried 3 kilometers beneath what humans once called the Rocky Mountains. The structure's power systems are still active after 3 millennia. Protected by quantum encryption we've barely begun to crack. Admiral Chiron's form brightened with interest. Weapons? Ancient human weapons. Something more valuable than weapons, Admiral. They found personnel, a single individual in cryogenic suspension, designated Guardian 01. The facility's records suggest this was part of something called the Apex Soldier Program. Counselor Mirasol leaned forward, her translator struggling with the concept. You're proposing we wake a primitive, a being from a civilization that couldn't even achieve faster-than-light travel before they abandoned their homeworld? The records we've decrypted tell a different story, Zixthar continued, projecting holographic files into the chamber's central display. 3,000 years ago, humanity wasn't primitive. They were engaged in what they called the Architect War, a conflict against an enemy whose description bears disturbing similarities to the Kreeth. According to fragmentary records, humanity won that war. Then they left, taking nearly all evidence of their military capabilities with them. The chamber erupted in debate. Zixthar let them argue, knowing that desperation would ultimately override objection. It took 20 minutes before Admiral Chiron called for order. Show us this Guardian, the Admiral commanded. The facility hummed with ancient power as Zixthar led the assessment team through corridors that had seen no life for 30 centuries. Dr. Venix, the Coalition's foremost xenobiologist, scanned every surface with her multiple sensor arrays, her excitement palpable despite the gravity of their mission. Remarkable preservation, she murmured. The environmental controls are more sophisticated than anything we currently deploy. Temperature variance of less than 0.01 degrees across the entire complex. The walls were lined with human script, warnings, protocols, authentication requirements. The translation AI struggled with the archaic language variants, but certain phrases appeared repeatedly. Last resort, existential threat only, and most ominously, never wake unless humanity is gone. That's specific, noted Captain Torvin, his security detail maintaining defensive positions despite the apparent emptiness. They anticipated their own extinction? Or evacuation, Zixthar suggested. Perhaps they left this as insurance. a final guardian for their homeworld. They descended deeper, through security checkpoints that opened only after complex biometric and quantum authentication sequences. The facility's AI seemed almost alive, evaluating them, judging whether they met criteria established 3,000 years ago. Finally, they reached the chamber. It was smaller than Zixthar expected, almost intimate. The walls were bare metal inscribed with names, thousands of them carved by hand. Each name had dates beside it. Dr. Venix's translator confirmed they were death dates, memorial markers for the Guardian's fallen comrades. In the center of the room stood a single cryopod, its surface covered in warning labels and status displays that still glowed with soft blue light. Inside, visible through the transparent aluminum viewport, was a human. Male gender based on typical human dimorphism, Dr. Venix reported, her sensors working frantically. Age approximately 30 standard years at the time of suspension. But the internal readings are impossible. Explain, Admiral Chiron demanded, present via holographic link. His cellular structure isn't entirely organic. Nanomachine colonies integrated at the molecular level. His skeletal system has been reinforced with quantum-locked metallic compounds. His neural tissue contains processing nodes that rival our best combat computers. This isn't augmentation. This is fundamental redesign of human biology. Zixthar approached the pod, studying the human's face. It was peaceful, almost serene, though there was something in the set of his jaw that suggested determination even in suspended animation. According to the nameplate, this was Marcus Chen, Lieutenant Commander Apex Special Operations Group. A memorial plaque beside the pod listed his decorations. Zixthar's translator struggled with the military terminology, but certain phrases translated clearly enough. Battle of Europa, solo defense, architect hive infiltration, survivor. Operation Dark Sun, primary assault element. The question, Captain Torvin said quietly, is whether we have the right to do this, to wake someone who may not consent to fight our war. He's a soldier, Admiral Chiron countered. Soldiers understand duty. He's a person, Zixthar corrected. A person who went to sleep expecting to wake in a world he knew, surrounded by his own species. We're about to thrust him 3,000 years into a future where humanity is gone, and ask him to fight for civilizations he's never heard of. The debate continued for hours. Eventually, as with all things in this desperate time, necessity overcame ethics. The Council voted they would wake Guardian 01. The revival process took 18 hours of careful biological manipulation. Dr. Venix and her team worked with exquisite precision, raising Marcus Chen's body temperature by fractions of a degree, carefully reactivating neural pathways, coaxing 3,000-year-old nanomachines back to life. Zixthar watched from the observation gallery as the human's first biometric readings appeared. Heart rate increasing, neural activity spiking, respiratory system engaging. His augmentations are initializing, Dr. Venix reported, her voice filled with scientific wonder tinged with fear. I'm reading power signatures that shouldn't be possible from biological sources. His body is generating enough energy to run this entire facility. The human's eyes opened. For a moment, there was nothing, just blank consciousness surfacing from millennia of darkness. Then awareness flooded in, and Zixthar watched as Marcus Chen's enhanced mind processed his situation at superhuman speed. The human didn't thrash or panic. His eyes tracked the medical equipment, the alien forms surrounding him, the unfamiliar technology. His expressions cycled through confusion, analysis, and finally settled into something cold and professional. When he spoke, his voice was rough from disuse, but the facility's ancient translator converted his words into Coalition standard. Status report. How long was I out and who won? Dr. Venix approached cautiously. Commander Chen, please remain calm. You've been in suspension for approximately 3,000 years. Your mission, your war, it ended long ago. Humanity won and departed Earth. Marcus Chen absorbed this information with unsettling composure. His enhanced eyes, Zixthar could now see the subtle artificial elements in his irises, focused on each of them in turn, conducting threat assessments even from a medical bed. 3,000 years, he repeated flatly. Then why wake me? Because we're losing, Zixthar said, moving forward. My name is Ambassador Zixthar of the Galactic Coalition. We face an enemy called the Kreeth Swarm. They consume worlds, adapt to every weapon we deploy, and show no capacity for negotiation or reason. We've lost 847 systems in 6 months. Marcus's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps. Show me the tactical data, he commanded. The assessment, the Coalition flagship, luminous dawn cut through quantum space with elegance that would have seemed like magic to the humanity Marcus Chen remembered. He stood in the observation deck, watching impossible colors stream past as the ship traversed dimensions that conventional physics couldn't explain. In his time, faster-than-light travel had been theoretical. Now it was as common as breathing. Impressive, isn't it? Ambassador Zixthar approached, his tentacles moving in patterns Marcus's enhanced linguistic processors identified as curiosity mixed with concern. Our quantum fold drives can cross the galaxy in days. We've mapped millions of worlds, united hundreds of species. We thought we'd transcended the barbarism of warfare. Marcus didn't look away from the window. Every civilization thinks that, right up until something comes along to remind them otherwise. How long until we reach the front lines? 6 hours. Commander, I feel compelled to ask, how are you processing all of this? Your entire world is gone. Everyone you knew is 3,000 years dead. You've awakened to a universe you couldn't have imagined. I'm processing it the way I was designed to, Marcus replied, his voice neutral. Emotional response has been partitioned into background processes. Primary focus remains on tactical analysis. That's what the augmentation does. It doesn't eliminate emotion, just prioritizes mission parameters. He finally turned to face the ambassador. But since you asked, Zixthar, I feel like a ghost. I died 3,000 years ago with my team. What you woke up is just the weapon they left behind. Before the ambassador could respond, Admiral Chiron's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. Commander Chen, report to Tactical Planning Room 7. The Coalition's Strategic Command wants to assess your capabilities. Marcus nodded to Zixthar and headed toward the indicated location, his internal mapping systems already plotting the most efficient route through the ship's alien architecture. The Tactical Planning Room was filled with the Coalition's finest military minds. Or at least, that's what they believed themselves to be. Marcus counted representatives from 15 different species, each wearing rank insignia that his pattern recognition software automatically decoded and cataloged. Commander Chen, Admiral Chiron began, his crystalline form refracting the room's lighting into rainbow patterns. We've prepared a simulation. It's based on the last major engagement at the Vortan cluster, a battle we lost catastrophically 3 weeks ago. We'd like to see how you'd approach it. They activated the holographic display. Marcus watched as the tactical situation materialized in 3-dimensional detail. Coalition fleet positions, Kreeth swarm vectors, planetary infrastructure, resource distributions. His enhanced mind absorbed it all in seconds, processing variables faster than the room's tactical computers. This is a test, he stated flatly. You lost this battle. You want to see if I would have done better. Consider it a diagnostic, responded General Thaxnor. A being that looked like mobile armor plating had gained sentience. We need to understand if your ancient warfare experience has any applicability to modern conflicts. Marcus studied the simulation for exactly 17 seconds. Then he began highlighting elements on the display with thought commands his neural interface transmitted to the room's systems. You concentrated your forces here, at the primary shipping lanes, he said, marking Coalition fleet positions. Logical from a defensive standpoint. Protect the infrastructure, evacuate civilians. The Kreeth came in 3 waves. You stopped the first, held against the second, then got overwhelmed when the third wave emerged from the planet's atmosphere. They'd already landed ground forces during the first engagement. Correct, Admiral Chiron confirmed. We detected them too late. By the time we realized they were on the surface, they'd established conversion factories. You were never going to win this battle, Marcus continued. Your entire strategic framework was wrong. You fought like this was a conventional war with conventional enemies who had conventional objectives. The Kreeth don't care about territory or resources in the way you understand them. They care about biomass conversion and network expansion. He manipulated the display, rewinding the simulation. You had 43 ships. Instead of concentrating them, I would have divided the fleet into hunter-killer groups of 3 vessels each. Set up a defensive perimeter not around the infrastructure, but around the planet's gravity well. Force the Kreeth to choose. Engage the fleet or land ground forces, but not both simultaneously. General Thaxnor's armor plates rattled in what Marcus's xenopsychology database labeled as skepticism. That spreads our forces too thin. Standard doctrine says concentration of force is. Standard doctrine is why you're losing, Marcus interrupted. The Kreeth adapt to concentration. They evolve countermeasures to overwhelming force because that's what you keep showing them. You need asymmetric response. Unpredictable, distributed, designed to disrupt their coordination rather than simply destroy their numbers. He brought up the timeline where the Kreeth ground forces had landed. Here's where you really lost. You attempted orbital bombardment of their landing zones. Predictable and ineffective. I would have deployed ground teams immediately. Small, fast, surgical strikes against what you're calling conversion factories. Disrupt their network nodes before they can establish coordination. We don't have ground forces capable of operating in Kreeth-occupied zones, Admiral Chiron said quietly. Their atmospheric conversion begins within minutes of landing. The environment becomes toxic to most coalition species within an hour. Marcus was silent for a moment. Then he pulled up his own biological specifications from the Luminous Dawn's medical database. I can operate in that environment. My augmented systems can process toxins, adapt to atmospheric changes, and maintain combat effectiveness in conditions that would kill unmodified organisms within seconds. That's what we were built for, fighting in environments where humanity couldn't naturally survive. The room fell quiet as the implications settled over them. You're proposing to deploy yourself as a ground operative? General Thaxnor asked, disbelief evident in his translated speech patterns. I'm proposing to do what I was designed to do, Marcus corrected. But first, I need to see the Kreeth in action. Not simulations, actual combat operations. I need to understand how they think, how they coordinate, how they adapt. Then I can tell you how to kill them. Bastion Station orbited at the edge of Coalition-controlled space like a fortress challenging the void. It was humanity's concept of a castle transplanted to the age of starships, massive, heavily armed, and serving as the last major defensive line before the core systems. Marcus stood in the observation deck as the Luminous Dawn docked, watching dozens of damaged warships undergo repairs. Medical transports ferried wounded by the thousands. He could see it in the crew's movements, hear it in their communications, the exhaustion of an army that had been fighting too long without victory. 8,000 combat-capable vessels, Captain Torvin briefed as they disembarked. 400,000 ground troops from 90 species. This station is held for 3 months, but intelligence suggests a major Kreeth offensive is imminent. They were greeted by Station Commander Plixtar, a being that resembled an upright mantis with 6 arms and compound eyes that never stopped moving. She assessed Marcus with the practiced evaluation of someone who'd sent thousands to their deaths and wanted to know if this new asset was worth the cost. The legendary human super soldier, she clicked, her translator rendering it with only slight sarcasm. Forgive my skepticism, Commander Chen, but I've seen hundreds of wonder weapons and tactical geniuses come through this station. The Kreeth are still here. I don't need you to have faith, Commander, Marcus replied. I need access to your forward observation posts and real-time combat data. Granted. But understand something. We lose observation posts daily. The life expectancy for forward observers is 72 hours. If you want to see the Kreeth up close, that's the price. Acceptable. The observation post was a stealth-equipped monitoring platform, positioned in what the Coalition called the Gray Zone, territory nominally controlled by neither side but practically crawling with Kreeth scout formations. Marcus had volunteered to man it alone, much to Captain Torvin's security detail's dismay. Now, 40 hours into his deployment, Marcus watched the Kreeth assault on Tharzin, a mid-sized colony world 12 light minutes away. Through the post's advanced sensor suite, he observed every phase of the attack. The Kreeth emerged from quantum space in precise formations, thousands of bioships, each one a living organism shaped by evolution and genetic manipulation into a weapon. They moved with purpose, not chaotic like an animal swarm, but calculated like pieces on a chessboard. Pattern recognition, Marcus muttered, his enhanced mind recording every detail. They're not individuals. They're extensions of a networked intelligence. He watched as Coalition defenders engaged. Their tactics textbook perfect but ultimately futile. The Kreeth adapted in real time, evolving countermeasures to every weapon deployed against them. Ships that successfully destroyed bioships in the first wave found their weapons ineffective in the second. Defensive formations that held for minutes crumbled as the Kreeth learned, adapted, and overcame. But Marcus wasn't watching the space battle. He was watching the ground assault. Kreeth landing pods, massive organic constructs that looked like meteorites wrapped in chitin, slammed into Tharzin's surface. Within minutes, they deployed conversion factories, rapidly consuming local biomass and manufacturing new drones. But there was something else. Something the Coalition's tactical analysts had missed. There, Marcus whispered, enhancing the sensor feed. The coordination pulse. Every 47 seconds, he detected a quantum signal emanating from the largest Kreeth structure on the surface. It wasn't communication, it was synchronization. The entire swarm was linked, receiving updates, distributing tactical information, functioning as a single distributed organism, and if they were networked, they had a central node. Marcus spent another 32 hours observing, tracking signal patterns, building a model of the Kreeth's coordination architecture. When Tharzin fell, its 3 billion inhabitants converted to biomass. In less than 2 standard days, he had what he needed. Marcus transmitted his findings to Bastion Station and requested immediate extraction. Within 6 hours, he was standing before a hastily assembled war council that included Admiral Chiron, Commander Plixtar, and 24 high-ranking Coalition military officials. The Kreeth swarm isn't as distributed as you think, Marcus began, projecting his analysis for the assembled commanders. Yes, individual bioships and drones have autonomous function, but their tactical coordination, their ability to adapt and learn, that's centralized. They have what we called a hive nexus when we fought the architects. He highlighted the quantum pulse signatures. Every engagement, every battle, generates data that flows back to a central processing node. The node analyzes, develops countermeasures, and distributes updated protocols. That's why they adapt so quickly. They're not learning locally. They're learning globally and then sharing that knowledge instantaneously. General Thaxnor's armor plates shifted forward aggressively. If such a nexus exists, our intelligence networks would have detected it. You've been looking for a command ship or a mother vessel, Marcus countered. But the architects didn't work that way, and neither do the Kreeth. The nexus isn't mobile, it's fixed. Probably on a conquered world, heavily defended deep beneath the surface where your sensors can't penetrate. Even if you're correct, Admiral Chiron interjected. How does this help us? We can't exactly invade a Kreeth-held world to search for a hypothetical control center. Marcus pulled up 3-dimensional star charts. You don't have to search. I can find it. Your signal intelligence has recorded thousands of quantum communications from Kreeth forces. I've analyzed the propagation patterns. The nexus is in this region. He highlighted a sector deep in Kreeth-controlled space. That's the Kronos Nebula. Commander Plixtar clicked an alarm. We've lost 17 scouting missions in that region. It's a death trap. Sensor interference, spatial anomalies, and the highest concentration of Kreeth forces we've ever mapped. Which is exactly why they'd hide their central coordination there, Marcus said. And it's exactly where I need to go. The room erupted in objections. Marcus waited patiently for them to exhaust themselves before continuing. You asked me how I'd fight this war. Here's your answer. Surgical strike on the nexus. Sever the swarm's central coordination. Without real-time tactical updates, individual Kreeth units will still be dangerous, but they won't adapt as effectively. You'll be fighting thousands of separate threats instead of one unified intelligence. It's suicide, General Thaxnor stated flatly. Even if the nexus exists where you believe, penetrating that deep into enemy territory is impossible. Marcus's expression hardened. I've done impossible before. I led a 3-person team into an architect hive complex, fought through 17 kilometers of hostile territory, and detonated a quantum warhead at their central command node. 2 of my team died buying me those final seconds. His voice went cold. Don't tell me about impossible, General. Tell me if you're willing to authorize the mission. The silence stretched. Finally, Admiral Chiron's crystalline form pulsed with resigned determination. What do you need? Marcus outlined his requirements. A recovered human strike craft from Earth's archives, specific weapon systems, unrestricted access to Coalition intelligence databases, and complete operational autonomy. I also need a diversion, he added. The Coalition fleet needs to engage Kreeth forces across multiple systems simultaneously. Make them believe you're launching a conventional offensive. While their attention is divided, I'll infiltrate the nexus. Commander Plixtar studied him with her compound eyes. You understand this is likely one way? Even if you succeed, Extraction from that deep in enemy territory is... I've been on borrowed time for 3,000 years, Marcus interrupted. If this doesn't work, the entire galaxy has approximately 4 weeks before the core systems fall. Those are acceptable odds. The council deliberated for 3 hours. In the end, desperation made the decision for them. Operation Dark Sun 2 was authorized, named after the mission that had killed Marcus's entire team 3,000 years ago. As the council dispersed, Sixthar approached Marcus privately. "Do you ever feel fear?" the ambassador asked quietly. Marcus considered the question. The augmentation doesn't eliminate fear. It just compartmentalizes it. Right now my fear response is registering at 87% of maximum capacity, but that's running as background process. Mission parameters take priority. That sounds like torture. It's efficiency, Marcus corrected. Then more softly. But yes, it can feel like torture. We weren't meant to be weapons, Ambassador. We were people first. The augmentation made us effective, but it didn't make us inhuman. I'm terrified of what I'm about to do. I'm terrified I'll fail. I'm terrified that I survived 30 centuries just to die in the dark, alone, fighting for people I don't even know. He looked at the ambassador with ancient, weary eyes. But I'm even more terrified of not trying. Sixthar's tentacles coiled in a gesture. Marcus's xenopsychology database identified as profound respect. Then I'll make sure the Coalition remembers what you're sacrificing. Commander Chen, whatever happens, your name won't be forgotten. Marcus smiled grimly. Add it to the wall back on Earth with all the others. That's memorial enough. He turned toward the hangar bay where his strike craft was being prepared. Behind him, he left an ambassador who finally understood what humanity had been, and what they'd sacrificed to become the species that could build weapons like Marcus Chen. The Resolution, the strike craft, Phantom Protocol was a relic pulled from Earth's deepest archives, a stealth infiltration vessel that represented humanity's pinnacle of military engineering 3,000 years ago. Compared to Coalition technology, it was primitive. Compared to anything the Kreeth had encountered, it was invisible. Marcus ran through pre-flight systems checks, his neural interface syncing with the ship's AI in ways that modern Coalition technology couldn't replicate. The Phantom had been built for operators like him, augmented humans who could process data faster than conventional computers and react with superhuman precision. All systems green, he reported over the secure channel to Bastion Station. Ready for deployment. Coalition fleet is moving into position, Admiral Karen's voice responded. In 40 minutes, we'll begin simultaneous offensive operations across 40 systems. You'll have approximately 6 hours of maximum Kreeth attention diversion. After that, understood. Initiating launch sequence. The Phantom Protocol detached from Bastion Station and slipped into quantum space with a whisper. Marcus felt the familiar sensation of reality bending around him. Different from Coalition fold drives. More aggressive, designed for rapid insertion rather than comfortable travel. He was alone in the dark, piloting toward an enemy that had consumed nearly 1,000 worlds, carrying nothing but ancient weapons and a plan that would have been rejected as insane by any rational military strategist at exactly where he belonged. The Kronos Nebula was beautiful in a way that would kill anyone who appreciated it too long. Exotic radiation painted the void in colors that didn't exist in normal space. Spatial anomalies created impossible geometry, where physics broke down and reassembled itself according to rules that changed by the minute. And through it all, the Kreeth swarm moved in perfect formation. Marcus watched bioships drift past, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescence as they patrolled the nebula's corridors. The Phantom remained undetected, its stealth systems operating on principles the Kreeth had never encountered. But that wouldn't last forever. Quantum signatures increasing, the ship's AI reported in clipped, efficient tones. Probability suggests primary nexus location at coordinates mark 773. Marcus adjusted course, diving deeper into the nebula. Behind him, across 40 systems, the Coalition fleet was engaging Kreeth forces in what appeared to be a desperate, poorly coordinated offensive. Exactly as planned. The Kreeth were adaptable, but even distributed intelligence had processing limitations. While they analyzed and countered the Coalition's panicked attack, Marcus slipped through their peripheral awareness. The Nexus revealed itself gradually. First, a massive asteroid with surface features too regular to be natural, then biosigns that registered as a single organism, 300 kilometers in diameter. Finally, the quantum communications, a torrent of data flowing in and out at rates that would overwhelm conventional analysis systems. Marcus's augmented mind absorbed the data streams, parsing patterns in real time. The Nexus wasn't just coordinating Kreeth forces, it was the Kreeth forces. Every bioship, every drone, every converted organism was an extension of this central consciousness. Killing it wouldn't destroy the swarm, but it would shatter their unity. Beginning infiltration approach, Marcus transmitted to Bastion Station, knowing the signal wouldn't reach them for hours. If you're receiving this, the diversionary assault worked. Whatever happens next, it's been an honor. He guided the Phantom toward what scanners identified as an atmospheric entry point, a massive orifice that pulsed like a breathing wound, surrounded by organic defensive structures that tracked the void with sensory organs that defied classification. Marcus armed his weapons, and of the Nexus interior was a nightmare rendered in biological architecture. Corridors of chitinous walls pulsed with fluid systems that served as both circulatory and neural networks. The air, if it could be called air, was thick with pheromones and chemical signals that carried information in ways electromagnetic communication never could. Marcus's augmented lungs filtered toxins, his modified metabolism breaking down compounds that would liquefy unprotected organic tissue. Alarms screamed in his neural interface as the environment tried to kill him in 17 different ways simultaneously. He'd felt worse in the architect hives. The Phantom couldn't navigate these corridors. The vessel was designed for space, not this organic labyrinth. Marcus set it to autonomous defense pattern and disembarked, carrying weapons that were older than the Coalition itself but still perfectly lethal. Within seconds, the Nexus became aware of him. Kreeth defenders emerged from the walls like thoughts made flesh. Bioforms shaped by evolution accelerated to weapon-grade efficiency. They were fast, adaptive, and designed to neutralize any threat to the central consciousness. Marcus was faster. His augmented reflexes operated in subjective time frames where seconds became minutes. He saw the defenders move, predicted their attack vectors before their own distributed nervous systems had finished processing motor commands, and responded with precision that bordered on precognitive. Railgun rounds, accelerated to relativistic velocities by magnetic fields powered by his own enhanced metabolism, tore through chitin and bone. Plasma bursts from his secondary weapon systems cauterized wounds before Kreeth regeneration could activate. Monomolecular blades extended from his forearm mounts, cutting through flesh with atomic-level precision. He fought through corridors that tried to crush him, through chambers that flooded with acid designed to break down Coalition species, past defenders that adapted with each encounter, but never quite fast enough to match 3,000 years of combat doctrine refined to its purest form. Approaching Central Chamber, Marcus reported to no one, maintaining protocol, even though he knew his transmissions couldn't penetrate the Nexus's organic shielding. Resistance is heavy but manageable. Multiple redundant pathways confirm primary intelligence is centralized. He'd been fighting for 37 minutes. His ammunition reserves were at 43%. His medical systems were processing 11 different toxins and 3 types of biological warfare agents. And he could feel the Nexus studying him, learning from every move he made, evolving countermeasures in real time. But he was still advancing, and that's what mattered. The Central Chamber defied expectation. Instead of some monstrous biological computer or alien brain, Marcus found himself in a space that resembled a cathedral if cathedrals were grown from flesh and existed to process the collective consciousness of a billion-entity swarm. At the chamber's center floated the Overmind. It was beautiful in a terrible way, a crystalline neural network, suspended in bioluminescent fluid, pulsing with thought processes that coordinated warfare across hundreds of star systems. Organic cables thick as tree trunks connected it to the Nexus infrastructure, carrying data in chemical and electrical forms simultaneously, and it was aware of him. You are not prey. The thought formed directly in Marcus's mind, bypassing his audio processing entirely. The Overmind was communicating through quantum entanglement, creating meaning in his consciousness through methods his augmented brain could perceive but not fully understand. You are not Coalition. You are old, ancient, You carry the scent of the progenitor war. Marcus steadied his weapons, targeting the overmind's central mass. I'm a soldier. That's all I need to be. Incorrect, the overmind responded, its consciousness vast and alien but somehow comprehensible. You are a remnant. Your species created you to fight beings like us. But your species is gone, scattered to corners of space we have not yet consumed. Why do you fight for those who are not your people? Because someone has to. Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger. Because maybe that's what people do, stand. Between the darkness and those who can't stand for themselves. Philosophical. Inefficient. The overmind's thoughts carried something that might have been respect. We do not choose consumption, we flee. Something comes behind us, soldier of the old war. Something that makes us seem merciful by comparison. We consume to build strength for what follows. Marcus paused. His tactical analysis systems flagged this as potential psychological warfare, an attempt to create hesitation, doubt, moral complexity in a situation that required simple action. But his enhanced pattern recognition detected something else. Truth markers in the overmind's quantum transmissions. It believed what it was saying. Then you should have asked for help instead of eating 1,000 worlds. Would they have listened? Would your species have listened? We'll never know. You chose consumption, and you choose extinction, for both of us. Marcus armed the quantum disruption device, a weapon that would collapse the overmind's consciousness by severing all quantum entanglements simultaneously. It would cascade through the entire Kreeth network, killing the nexus and reducing billions of drones to uncoordinated organisms operating on base instinct. I choose survival for people who deserve a chance. Whatever's coming, they'll face it with their minds intact and their civilization standing. That's more than you gave them. He activated the device. The overmind's final thought was almost gentle. Then we share the same fate, soldier. May we both be remembered as guardians, however flawed. The quantum disruption wave propagated faster than light, faster than thought, tearing through the Nexus's biological architecture like a chain reaction of consciousness death. The overmind's central structure shattered, its crystalline neural networks fragmenting into inert matter as quantum connections severed across light years. Marcus felt the feedback. The device wasn't just collapsing the overmind's consciousness, it was interfacing with his own augmented systems. The quantum entanglement that made him superhuman was similar, enough to the Kreeth's coordination network, that the weapon couldn't differentiate. Pain exploded through his neural pathways as his own. Enhancements began to fail. Across the galaxy, Coalition forces watched in awe as the Kreeth swarm simply stopped. Bioships that had been executing complex tactical maneuvers drifted, their coordination lost. Drones that had been adapting to every weapon the Coalition deployed became predictable, their behavior degrading to base biological instinct. Ground forces that had operated with hive-mind precision fragmented into confused organisms that Coalition troops could finally, actually fight. At Bastion Station, Admiral Chiron observed the tactical displays with crystalline disbelief. Confirmed status across all sectors. Confirmed, Admiral, the operations officer reported. Kreeth forces have lost all coordinated function. Individual units remain dangerous, but they're no longer adapting or coordinating. It's like fighting animals instead of an intelligence. Marcus Chen did it, Ambassador Zixthar whispered. He actually did it. Can we get extraction teams to the Nexus coordinates? Captain Torvin demanded. Admiral Kieran checked the tactical plot. Nearest fleet assets are 4 hours away. If he's alive, we'll get him out. Marcus regained consciousness in stages, his damaged augmentation systems struggling to maintain basic biological functions. The central chamber was collapsing around him, the Nexus's organic structure dying without the Overmind's coordination to maintain it. His left arm wouldn't respond, neural connections severed by the quantum backlash. His visual processing flickered between normal sight and error messages his organic brain couldn't interpret. Medical diagnostics scrolled past his failing consciousness. 17 critical systems offline, 34 operating at degraded capacity, estimated survival time approximately 40 minutes. He'd been in worse shape before. Briefly during the Europa defense before the medical team had put him back together. This time, there was no medical team coming. Marcus dragged himself toward the chamber's exit. leaving a trail of blood that mixed with the Nexus's dying fluids. Around him, the organic walls convulsed and dissolved. He could feel the entire structure beginning its death throes, a 300-kilometer organism expiring all at once. His communication systems flickered to life, damaged but functional enough to receive a signal from the Coalition fleet. Commander Chen, this is Admiral Chiron. Multiple vessels are en route to your position. Estimated arrival, 3 hours, 40 minutes. Can you confirm your status? Marcus tried to respond, but his vocal synthesizer was offline. He managed to pulse a simple biosign beacon, alive, wounded, mobile, but degrading. We see your beacon, Commander. Hold your position if possible. Help is coming. Marcus laughed, the sound more biological than mechanical, emerging from lungs that were maybe 70% original organic tissue and 30% augmented systems that were currently failing. Hold his position in a dying organic superstructure that was collapsing into itself, deep in enemy territory, with 40 minutes of life support remaining and 3 hours until extraction. He kept moving anyway, because that's what soldiers did. The extraction team found him 2 kilometers from the central chamber, unconscious but alive, his augmented biology having shifted into a hibernation state that conserved remaining energy. They pulled him from the dying Nexus 17 minutes before the entire structure collapsed, taking with it the biological infrastructure that had coordinated the greatest threat the Coalition had ever faced. Marcus woke 6 days later in Bastion Station's medical bay, surrounded by equipment from a dozen different species all working to understand human augmentation biology that was 3,000 years more advanced than anything in their databases. Welcome back, Dr. Venix greeted, her multiple sensor arrays examining him with scientific fascination tinged with genuine concern. You've been classified as both dead and alive approximately 40 times in the past week. Your physiology is remarkably stubborn about choosing one state over the other. Mission status? Marcus asked, his voice rough. Complete success. The Kreeth swarm has fragmented into isolated groups. We're systematically eliminating resistance across all sectors. Civilian casualties are finally declining. Worlds are being liberated, she paused. You saved approximately 2 trillion sentient beings, Commander Chen. Probably more given enough time. Marcus processed this information. 2 trillion lives. His entire species at its height had numbered maybe 20 billion. The scale was incomprehensible, and his augmented mind refused to fully engage with the emotional weight of it. My systems? He asked instead. Dr. Venix's sensors dimmed. 40% of your augmentation network is permanently damaged. You'll survive, but you won't be what you were. The quantum processors that gave you superhuman reaction time are burned out. The neural enhancement that let you process information faster than computers is operating at maybe 30% capacity. You'll still be enhanced beyond baseline human normal, but the weapon you were, that's gone. Marcus absorbed this. He should feel loss, horror. His entire identity for 30 years and then 3,000 years of suspended animation had been built around being the apex of human military engineering. Now he was just diminished. Instead, he felt relief. Good, he said quietly. Maybe now I can be just Marcus Chen again. See what that's like. The victory celebration on Bastion Station lasted 3 days. Marcus attended for approximately 40 minutes, accepting thanks from dozens of species he'd never heard of before, receiving medals and honors that meant nothing to him, and generally feeling like the ghost he'd claimed to be. He found Ambassador Zixthar in a quiet observation deck, looking out at ships returning from successful operations against the now fragmented Kreeth. You're avoiding the party, Zixthar observed. Parties celebrate. I just did my job. Marcus joined him at the window. Besides, I have questions that no one seems willing to answer. The Overmind's warning, Zixthar said. It wasn't a question. It said the Kreeth were fleeing. That something worse was coming. Marcus turned to face the ambassador. I'm damaged, Zixthar, but I'm not stupid. You've been avoiding this topic for 6 days. The ambassador's tentacles coiled in a pattern. Marcus's damaged xenopsychology. Systems identified as deep concern mixed with resignation. Long-range scouts have detected anomalies in the galactic rim regions the Kreeth originated from. Quantum signatures unlike anything in our databases. Something is moving toward Coalition space. Slowly, but inexorably. Current estimates suggest first contact in approximately 70 years. 70 years. That's 2 or 3 human generations, several for most coalition species. Marcus considered this. You want me to go back to sleep? Be your contingency plan again. We're asking, not ordering. You've done enough, Commander. You could retire, live whatever life you want with your augmented lifespan, but you might need someone who knows how to fight things that make the Kreeth look merciful. Marcus smiled grimly. I should say no. I should tell you to solve your own problems, that I've paid enough in blood for civilizations I don't belong to. But, Sixthar prompted gently, but someone has to stand watch, and apparently I'm very good at it. He looked out at the stars, so many more than humanity had ever reached in his time. So many civilizations that now had a chance to exist because he'd been willing to wake up and fight for them. 70 years, Marcus repeated. I'll spend 1 year recovering, learning about this new galaxy I've found myself in. Maybe make some friends, see some sights, pretend to be a person instead of a weapon. Then you put me back on ice until whatever's coming arrives. The Council will want to study your augmentation, try to replicate. No. Marcus's voice hardened. The technology dies with me. Trust me, Zixthar. You don't want to go down the path of creating weapons like me. It costs more than you can imagine. The ambassador was silent for a long moment. Your year starts now, Commander Chen. I'll personally ensure you have access to anything you want, anywhere you want to go. You've earned that much. Marcus nodded, then paused. One question. What happened to humanity? Where did they go? No one knows. They withdrew from galactic affairs 3,000 years ago and simply vanished, left behind their homeworld, their installations, and sleeping guardians like you. Some theorize they transcended to higher dimensions. Others believe they're still out there watching. Or perhaps they encountered whatever's coming now and chose evacuation over confrontation. So I might be the last human in the galaxy, Marcus mused. Perhaps, or perhaps you're the first of many to wake when they're needed. Zixthar's tentacles formed a gesture of respect. Either way, Marcus Chen, you are not forgotten. And you are not alone. Marcus returned to watching the stars, feeling the weight of years, both past and future, settling on shoulders augmented to carry burdens beyond human tolerance. Somewhere in the galactic rim, something ancient and terrible was moving toward the light. In 70 years it would arrive, and the Coalition would face a threat that had sent the Kreeth fleeing in terror. But for now, the galaxy had time. Time to rebuild, to prepare, to evolve. And when the darkness came again, they would have a guardian waiting. A weapon 3,000 years old who had learned, finally, what he was protecting and why it mattered. Marcus Chen closed his eyes and let himself simply exist for a moment. Not a soldier, not a weapon, just a man standing watch between the darkness and the dawn, exactly where he'd always belonged.